Okej, tack för detta. Vi har också haft många som har lyft upp behovet av att prata om pengar och ekonomi, om hur vi som arkitekter och planerare behöver bli bättre på att jobba med kalkyler på olika sätt. Och det finns ju allt fler arkitekter och forskare framförallt som vi kan se som refererar till ekonomen Kate Rainsworth-Munk-modellen, den så kallade donut-modellen. Och det är en modell som är både en visuell bild men som i grunden handlar om hur vi kan åstadkomma en förflyttning från en linjär ekonomi till en cirkulär ekonomi. Och modellens parametrar, ni har säkert sett den någon gång i något sammanhang, den refererar ju till Agenda 2030 och de globala hållbarhetsmålen. Och den ses som en kompass för liksom hur vi både kan få ihop mänsklig välfärd med målet om att uppnå alla människors behov inom gränsen för planetens resurser. Och nu så är det också som mina damer och herrar att vi ska ha ett panelsamtal. Vi ska prata om den här nedväxten och vi ska få se hur vi kan jobba med det här i praktiken inom arkitektur och planering. Jag ska välkomna upp Rask från Bloxhub, Stefan Person från Tomelilla kommun och Grettve från whenwhen. Varmt välkomna upp. Jag är jättenyfiken på att höra ert samtal om denna viktiga och väldigt intressanta fråga. Har ni mikrofoner? Ja, en applåd. Ja.
There we go. Now you hear me. It's super warm. If you want to stand up for a quick moment, do so. Feel free to move around a little bit. Back-to-back sessions. And we're going to talk about our favorite topic. Economy. Architects love economy and specifically maybe degrowth in practice. We've heard quite a few sessions on repair and our capacity to rethink maintenance and care. And it's time to deepen the connection between care and economy, and that's what we'll do in this session. I'm super excited to moderate a talk named Degrowth in Practice, since that seems to be an extremely sensitive topic in the Nordics. In many other places of the world, degrowth as a movement is growing extensively. And we're not going to cover the meaning and theories of degrowth in detail today, I believe. So please do read up later if you don't already know everything about degrowth. But in very short terms, the theory states that we have finite planetary resources and therefore should have a finite economy. However, that's not the case. Our current economic system behaves as if there is no end to it. So back to repair. Economy and repair are complex notions to weave together, and I'm going to give you a very easy example of what I mean with that. If I have a jacket where the zipper breaks, I can leave it to a shop to repair it for me. But unfortunately, though, it could cost me more than buying a new jacket. And as a person in this current world, it often costs more to repair than to buy new. And if we look at the cost for the planet, though, we're better off repairing the zipper. So there is a misalignment between personal costs and planetary costs. And I believe that is what we see within the construction industry as well. So to delve into this very tricky topic, I've got two brilliant minds with me. Stefan Person, strategic developer at Tomelilla municipality and whom I've had the pleasure to work with. I think you're not only brave, but also an inspiring mind that shows so many others how to move from theory to action. Yeah. I was just going to quickly, your mic is not on. Present Jakob as well, okay. If that's okay, Stefan, that's before okay. I let you. Jakob Rask, the director of Regenerative Built Environment Network at Bloxhub in Copenhagen. Welcome to the Swedish side. You're also an active writer and lecturer who studied for Kate Raworth, and you, according to me, have deep knowledge on donut economics. We'll see, yeah. But I'm going to kick this off and just start with asking you about your own ideas of degrowth, and maybe why degrowth seemed to be such a sensitive topic.
We should begin.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you very much. That's for the kind introduction, and thank you all for coming. Yeah. So you asked me just before whether I was for or against degrowth, and that's not my favorite subject, because actually the reason that I work with the donut model of planetary and social boundaries is that I think it's a concept that's easier to popularize and which can travel further, whereas degrowth emerged as quite a technical concept within academia, but which is rapidly spreading now. And I don't know if you know, but per this year, degrowth is actually more sought term on Google Scholar than circular economy. So we've just crossed that threshold.
Right.
Yeah. So if I should say, I think a few months ago, Jason Hickel came to Copenhagen for this well-being conference. And as you said, in Barcelona, degrowth seems to be a very understood and popular term. And I think I agree with everything he proposed in his talk. It's about focusing on particular downsizing particular parts of our production, prioritizing well-being, universal basic services, and so on. I agree with all of that. The only thing, I think the problem with degrowth is actually in the word itself and in the framing. So if you go back to Lakoff, Kate Raworth points this out in her book, George Lakoff, there is something about if you use the frame, you reinforce it. So it's like, don't think of an elephant, right? So there is something in using a term which is growth, which economists, and I'm originally an environmental scientist, but I became an economist to understand this question around growth and have been working with it most of my life. We mean something very technical and specific, which is GDP, which is a measure of the market value of goods and services and so on. And Simon Kuznets, who came up with the term, was a brilliant mind. He said immediately, never think that should be a measure of progress. But that's not how most people consider the term. So there is a big gap between what economists think everyone knows and then what actually we most think of it. And I think that's the problem with the term. That's why I prefer thriving within boundaries, because that seems to be a more immediate positive vision. So to summarize, I think thriving within limits should be the goal of economic activity, goal of economics. Degrowth, where we stand now in Sweden and Denmark, is the pathway towards that. That's my simple answer. Yeah.
You think that's simple?
Okay. The last bit.
Yeah. You called me brave, and I thought we were going to say and stupid, because I don't really know why I'm here. Because I actually think the concept of degrowth and growth is quite boring to discuss. Pretty much from a practitioner's perspective, but Jakob here gave me a good background to why it maybe is a bit boring to discuss degrowth and growth, because as I see it, it's a remnants from 18th and 19th, 20th century isms: industrialism, communism, conservatism, liberalism, and so on. And it's kind of two sides of the same coin there. We always try and find thesis, antithesis, and thesis, and so on. And I think 21st century should be about something else, something more holistic. And that's why I also lean towards donut economics and keep an agnostic perspective on growth and degrowth. On different levels, of course. GDP as a goal in itself, that doesn't work. We know that. But then we have to find new concepts, and I really believe what you said too. The more we talk about concepts, the more they become true, and then we have a conflict between growth and degrowth, where we actually should talk about something completely different. So
But would you both say that donut economics and degrowth then is the same thing, or working towards the same goal?
So when Kate Raworth is asked this question, she will say, like I just said, it depends on your definition. So degrowth is a huge scholarly community with thousands of articles, and of course you can't agree with every single one. But if you say what Jason Hickel says, that basically what he's arguing is that growth exponential growth or steady growth is no longer physically possible. And when I started talking about this 10 years ago, every economist, every serious a politician would laugh and say you're an idiot. But now it's like even our most hardline economists, if you ask, are we going to have a doubling in GDP in 25 years? It's really hard to find someone. So in a way, we're already living in a post-growth economy, but we're kind of in denial because we haven't developed alternatives. So I would say, if you take that definition from people like Jason Hegel saying degrowth is not an alternative to growth, it's an alternative to collapse, which is where we're heading if we look at like the planetary boundaries and the limits to growth models like Guy Harrington updated. That's what degrowth is. It's a planned reduction of particular parts, and I think that's a good pathway towards a safe and just space, which the donut aims for. So that would be my response to that. But it depends on where you start. If you start in Bangladesh, several percentage of GDP growth per year could be part of what you need, but only in specific sectors. So it's all about where you're starting from.
I think there's an interesting parallel towards agnosticism, towards degrowth, and towards the existence of God. I'm agnostic to the existence of God as well, and many people think that means, well, then you don't believe in God. No, I'm agnostic. I don't know if there is a God, and I keep the opportunity and the mind open for it. And I think that's how I need to look at every part of the economy, if it should grow or not. I don't know. Let's see what the future has.
Yeah. And like to tying this a little bit more to architecture and urban planning today, you and I, Stefan, have tried to apply donut economics on a real project. What do you see? What's the problem? Like, why are we ready to work with these thoughts within architecture?
Well, I'm not an architect, so that's not my question to answer. But the experience from our project is very interesting because we have had a lot of discussions. Can we build at all, for example? Where we are today, I think, we have to build, but we have to build in another way. And maybe in the future we can stop building, but right now we have to build. That's my opinion. But also it raises so many interesting questions about how to collaborate and how to look at sustainability. I find it often when we work with sustainability, we kind of always drop into either we talk about climate or either we talk about social sustainability. We can't grab it all in once. And I experienced that a little bit with planning a school as well. We can't keep it all in mind at the same time, and that's what we have to learn. We have to accept that the world is extremely complex, and we have to accept that we don't know about the future. We have to have a humble attitude towards the future and experiment, test, be brave to test and fail. So.
I can be the non-humble Dane then, because in Denmark our architects are engaging with this, and there are actually companies like developers who are claiming that they're working towards the donut. There are of course also critics saying that you're nowhere near. But we what happened was a few years ago, 4 years ago, I think, Kate Raworth was visiting Copenhagen. Actually, don't tell anyone, but because her son really likes Bjarke Ingels, the famous Danish architect, so they wanted to go on Easter holiday to see his work. And he's a controversial figure in Denmark right now. He wants to build on Mars. But so we did an event, and the long story short, out of that, a lot of architects got working, and Realdania, the big philanthropic association, funded work to see what would it actually mean to do urban development within planetary boundaries, and there are sort of two answers that come out of that. And to not get technical, the first is that we have 5 years of budget left, and then Denmark has sort of spent our CO2 budget, But that's not considering historical emissions. That's just considering our Paris Agreement obligations. Actually, if you look at the whole responsibility, we are in debt. So we've already spent more than enough of our budget. So in that sense, what it would a donut urban development in Copenhagen would mean stop emitting and actually start sequestering carbon, or helping other places get into a just space with less emissions. That would be the simple answer. So many architects in Denmark are actually now lobbying to have 0 new buildings. As a provocation, it probably they don't even think it will happen. But it's a good provocation.
Yeah, no. I have actually done a little research myself one afternoon, not too long ago, on empty office buildings in Malmo. Like you find them on Hemnet, but for offices. And then a little bit of math. I ended up with Malmo being able to change those into apartments, 12,000 something. There is space, and I mean everything we've talked about here today as well. Repair, upgrade, change. Maybe that's where we're heading. But also quickly back to the little project we did together. Cool. You can talk to Stefan afterwards if you want to know more. But I mean, my idea was, let's not build anything at all. Let's just have the kids outside. I felt a little bit like the emperor with his clothing there. Like, who are we? And talking for myself, maybe some of you as well. I'm in a little bit of an identity crisis. Like, if architects are not supposed to build buildings, who are we? Like, what are we supposed to do? Could you enlighten us with your thoughts on that perspective?
I think we should ask the audience. There's probably lots of architects here. I don't know. I think we always need people to design our environment. If it's playgrounds, woodlands, farming, anything, you need designers. But maybe not designing new buildings in the future. I don't know. So it's quite boring answer. I don't know, but I really don't know. So, and I think that's my main message today. Stay humble to the future, because we don't know what the future holds.
I agree. Next week we have an event in Copenhagen City Hall, which is about 110 years old. It's a very, very beautiful building. It looks 300 years old because it was in this Gesamtkunst period where they were looking towards the William Morris in England and its arts and crafts. So it looks very beautiful. We're going to build a time machine to take us into the Copenhagen of the future. But I was there earlier this morning to check with that all the technical stuff was working. And what I thought was the architect who built that, and from that era, they were so proud of what they'd done, so they wrote their names all over it, and there was this real they wrote and like how many architects today would like your name on the front of the building, except for Bjarke Engels maybe. There is something about rediscovering like a sense of that sense of achievement, and I think it's. If we should, economizing an economy, if it has any meaning at all, is about prioritizing how we spend resources, real resources, time, labor, and the earth. And if we think about that, there was another economist, John Kenneth Galbraith. He had this criticism of the UK. He said we have private luxury and public squalor. And I think what we need, and what historically Sweden and Denmark has done, is to have public luxury and private sufficiency. And I think I thought about that very much today at City Hall. There are golden ashtrays in the toilets while you're standing up and peeing. So that's public luxury. We have swimming pools. We used to have that. Probably now there are more private swimming pools being built every year than public ones restored. So there is a big task for architects. And if you should build and draw, I think we should make parks and public libraries and schools and so on. That's the best way to spend our public resources, and then perhaps less private tennis courts and swimming pools, something like that.
Are there any questions in the audience? Feel free to dive in if you... No. That's what I said. It's a sensitive topic in the Nordics. Yeah.
Hello, I have a question about degrowth and the global perspective that you, Jakob, was touching a bit upon. How do you guys see us, like, from a global north perspective, you can call it? Maybe degrowth is what we need to go into, but from a global south perspective, as I've understood it, it's not really the same thing there. So, on a global perspective, do we have, like, any, like, what do we need to shoulder any responsibility to help on a global perspective, or is that something we shouldn't do, learning from colonialism?
Is it a question for...
I don't know. You can. I think interesting perspective that's got me thinking a lot is that we really need to go back to very local economy, local resources, and so on, and that will affect the global economy, and it will affect the global south. And how it will affect it, and if it's good or bad, I don't know. But I think the way forward for us is going more local.
Yeah. Since we have little time, I just want to recommend a very good interview with Jason Hickel on the Upstream podcast. So if you search in your podcast app Upstream, he has done an analysis like what would it actually take to feed, house and clothe everyone, and they say we could do it with 30% less energy consumption than today, but it would mean things like not producing private jets and yachts and so on. But so that's the long answer is in there. But if you think about the donut, we've mapped it and we've asked like which country is closest, and the closest is Costa Rica, because already in the 70s they decided to not cut down the rainforest and go for thriving with a low environmental impact and so on. Sweden and Denmark, we're very, very far. We're in the reduced category, and then you have countries with a very low overshoot, but with millions falling through on life's essentials. So they could be in the rise category. And historically we said, well, they have to grow and get to where we are, and we call it development. But in terms of, if we frame it in terms of the donut, we're all developing countries. So Denmark and Sweden is just as much on a path towards development. And of course there are historical reasons like colonialism, which means that the countries who have been locked in this de facto, they are developing us. So if you look at the resource and energy and labor flows, right now we are living on the expense of these countries. So we need to rebalance that, you could say. And of course that I agree with relocalization, but we also don't want to be the people like who has been at the party all throughout, and then just now the latecomers are entering, and then we say, okay, we'll split the bill, and actually I'm leaving. That's a dangerous. I know that's not what you're suggesting, but you get my point. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I also said that it's a sensitive topic, because we all know we're using too much. And what do we do with that knowledge?
Yeah.
Yeah? One more question. We have time for one more.
Yeah, I just want to know more about Tomelilla, and you work there.
Do you have an hour more or something? Well, we the same day I started in Tomelilla municipality. For those who don't know Tomelilla, it was a small rural municipality in the southeast part of Österlen, together with Simrishamn and parts of Ystad. Same day I started there, we had a new program, a quality of life program, replacing a public health program and environmental program. And when you take two complex areas and put together, they don't get easier or more simple. They get more complex. So we found our task to follow up and evaluate how we're actually doing on quality of life. We really found no good tools in our toolbox. So we kind of started looking at new tools. And I read about Amsterdam and their work on the donut economics, and that's kind of where it all started. Can we use this to evaluate our quality of life program? and we got the RISE, the Research Institute of Sweden, involved in it, and then we just kept working on it, and it turned out we were the first municipality in Sweden to work with it, which surprised us. And now we're kind of using it to quite a few sustainability areas. We are planning the new school and using the donut as a compass. We won't stay in the donut with the school totally, but we'll aim at staying in as much as possible. And we have had a lot of workshops both internally in the municipality to get this holistic perspectives on sustainability with all the people working in the municipality, connecting city planners with school personnel and social workers and so on to kind of get the same picture of where we're heading. And we've also been working a lot with innovation. So kind of innovation first and then donut economics, using that as a kind of an innovation project, testing, seeing what happens when we use it. And now with a couple of months ago, we did our first city portrait copying Amsterdam and a few other places that made it. And taking part in the global community of donut economics, cities and regions working with it, which is very inspiring for us as a small municipality to talk to region of Brussels, Copenhagen, and so on. And we're learning a lot, but I think they are learning just a little bit from us as well. So,
time is out, so I think we have to round up. I just want to send you off with a on the Tomelilla note. That I ended up being the anarchist in the in the team, and I think that's where we are right now. Like, we need to sit with everything that is uncomfortable and that is painful, and we're still friends. So
absolutely.
So we need to embrace hard dialogues. That's it. Over and out.